Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror and media. And today, it's John's birthday!
Woo! I'm excited.
And John, what the fuck did you want us to do today?
I wanted to revisit The Witch and Hereditary because we did that podcast or this episode really early on. It might be like the second episode of this podcast.
It's trash.
Like ever, it's awful.
It's so bad.
I hate it so much.
I'm sorry. Everyone that listened to it, good job if you got through that. Like,
it's really funny though because
it is,
every time I tell someone that hey, I have a podcast or I'm on a podcast, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to start at the beginning," and then they go to the Witch episode. They're like, "Dude, you weren't on it. What the fuck?"
This is exactly why I took away the numbers. You can start anywhere in the podcast. Whatever interests you, go to that episode.
Yeah, there is nothing.
Yeah, there's no. You don't have to go to the beginning. But I wanted to rehash these two films because this is the crew that we're sticking with. All of the hosts completely different, and I think it'd be good to go back and take a look at these movies again. Plus, this is like the second or third time that I've seen these movies, and I feel like I saw a lot more in them.
Definitely, there's a lot to talk about, especially with these two movies. Have we even mentioned the names of them yet? I don't think we did. No, we haven't.
So today we are doing The Witch and Hereditary.
Dun, dun, dun. You'll remember our 2-hour take on this back in 2019.
God, that was a really long episode.
Oh, God. I remember being in the room doing that one.
Yeah.
It was a good time. We didn't even know that we would even have this little thing going or where it was going to go and if it was even going to make anything. And now here it is.
Still not making anything. No,
still not making anything. My bills are still coming out of a different pocket.
I'm just kidding. We have one patron. Thank you, Anthony.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Anthony. The one patron. Hey, whoa. He is the glorious one forever.
Exactly.
We should give him his own title.
Yeah.
He's the glorious one.
I'll figure out like a way to like have a name on Patreon and like it'll like send a message to him every month. It's cool. It'll work out.
Anyway,
we should start with The Witch though.
We should get on with The Witch.
Okay, so The Witch was directed by Robert Eggers. It is his first movie debut directorial. It was made in 2015. So let's see. The budget was $4 million, and it grossed $25,138,000. So it made its money back. It's good to know.
I thought it made somewhere around $40 million, like a little more. But I mean, it's.
Oh wait, that was the USA. You were correct. It made $40 million worldwide.
Okay, we were just looking at different numbers, but like collectively, so it made a good amount of money. That's a pretty good slot for your debut film.
Yeah, honestly. Not a lot of people could get that big of a turnout for their debuts.
A lot of people didn't like this movie. I saw a bunch of reviews, and the critics really like it, but most of the standard patrons did not like this movie.
I could understand that.
I can understand why. I feel like the language of the film is really hard to stomach sometimes, but I also think that's one of the beautiful parts of it at the same time is the language that they and so because it's so entranced in that period, or at least it tries really hard to be.
Also another A24 film.
Both of these are A24.
How many have we covered now from A24?
So many.
Like 5 or 6.
Like is amazing. They just do good fucking movies.
Yeah, they've been releasing a lot of good films.
I will say, though, that it's a period piece from the 1630s.
Yeah, when all of the New Englanders were trying to settle on the North American land and having a terrible fucking time.
Well, this story in particular takes place with a family who's been excommunicated from their like group.
Yeah,
basically. Due to the father's past.
What a great casting for the father.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No,
His
they did a great job.
voice is nuts. Like, he has such a good voice for voice acting, and he's the first person to speak in the film. But I like that he basically tells them to fuck off, where he's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to be judged by you fake Christians.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the parts of the film that drags the entire family down is it's his sinful pride that, like, infects their Garden of Eden, if you will, of the... Basically, they enter into this new farm, and they're going to start their new life away from their community that they've been excommunicated due to the husband's pride, which is revealed a little bit later.
Yeah.
During a fight between the wife and the husband.
Yeah, so we're talking about Ralph Ineson. If you don't know him, he was on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
As well as Kate Dickie, who plays Catherine, who also breastfeeds on Game of Thrones.
Yep. That's the first thing you meet her is like Lyanna Stark.
Oh shit! I totally forgot about that.
Yep, it is her.
Anna Taylor is Thomasin, her first acting role ever.
What? That was her first role?
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That does not seem like her first role.
Her eyes, dude. She was doing modeling prior, but.
Yeah. I just feel like it doesn't translate into acting, but maybe you know how to look.
Probably my favorite character is played by Harvey Scrimshaw, the little son. His name is Caleb.
Yeah.
And then Ellie Granger and Lucas Dawn as Mercy and Jonas.
Terrible children.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they're absolute trash. They're like the crowd in like the Crucible. That's what they are in this one. They are the crowd in the Crucible. If you've ever seen or read the play The Crucible, you know about it. They're basically just the frantic and scared public in this small like situation we have brewing here.
I think what I liked a lot about this film in particular was that they consulted a lot of people for the accuracy of the items in the movie, for their clothes, what they would be saying. So everything is like period correct for what they were doing. I'm
glad you bring that up because they used real pilgrim / what is it, noble, or what are they called?
I'm not sure.
The type of society that they live in.
It would just be like Puritans.
Yeah,
Puritans.
mostly
Puritans.
Puritans.
They use real Puritan techniques. They use that, like the real techniques to construct the farm and the house.
Oh, as in like the people who made it?
Who made the set, yes.
Jesus, way to make your job hard.
And then they only use natural overcast lighting and candlelight to light the film. There's no artificial lighting.
Yeah, makes sense why this movie fucking has terrible lighting, but whatever.
Yeah.
It does have some pretty gnarly lighting points. I liked the lighting on a lot of the shots, though, but I guess I can see why some of it can look a little amateurish.
It's a little dark sometimes.
A
little bit too dark or too light sometimes also. Like there's too much brightness from like one area that doesn't need to be there.
That's what I felt like when I was watching it. It was too saturated in one or the other.
Couple other production notes. So Robert Eggers made this movie because the witches were basically like a thing that haunted him ever since he was a kid in his dreams. And he felt like him and his like college friends would make stories about witches and like basically just all as they would go through the woods, just like, oh dude, a witch is totally gonna get you right there. And they would just like kind of freak each other out. And then the other actor who was in this movie, Charlie the Goat,
the actor's named Charlie.
His name's Charlie. He was a fucking asshole on the entire set and actually gored Ralph Ineson on set, and they had to actually take him to the hospital.
Holy shit! What happened?
He got gored. Like he did in the movie. He actually got gored.
Like actually gored. Yeah, like the goat fucking charged his ass.
Torn in fucking body.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
that's oftentimes
at least you got the shot. No.
that's a lot of times why you see the goat being seen as like the epitome of Satan or something like that, is because it's the adversary. It is the unwieldy creature that you have no control over. Whereas the sheep will listen to you and go where you want it to go. And be like, you go over here, sheep. Meh, I will. And then the goat, however, says, fuck off. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want because I'm the goddamn goat or whatever the fuck.
I like that the goat was called Black Phillip.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Black Phillip.
Dude, the creepiest fucking children just screaming, just yelling all sorts of things, and then just singing these little songs.
These trashy bored children, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. I will say though that with like the goat, it's so crazy to me that like I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just like how they act around the goat, because the goat's either A, chilling, or B, fucking shit up. And like it just goes off. Like Charlie Black Phillip is a fucking asshole.
Well, I gotta assume that the devil was in the goat the whole time.
Satan is the goat.
Yeah, and he's just whispering to the children all the time.
This is basically a story of this family going somewhere that is not safe from Satan's influence, is essentially what it is. So when they go there, this goat is on their farm with them, influencing their children. A big point of the story as well is the selling of their daughter. They're going to be selling her off when she hits puberty. That's a big point of contention in this movie as well. Or not contention, rather just an important note. And that is also what begins her transformation throughout the film as well, too. That kicks that off as well. Her willingness to betray her mother and father, another sin. All the Puritan sins are displayed. Like, the entire family does all of them throughout this whole movie, every single time.
The son just trying to not have his sister be sold.
So I didn't know. So that was actually one of the questions that I had for you guys was, how did you feel about their relationship? Because at some point it suggests that the little brother was looking at her in a sexual way.
Oh, absolutely.
And then in other ways, it was like he was just caring about his sister. But it was like they're the only people that they see. So there was like, what was going on with that?
My read on that is that it's the representation of the lust sin.
Okay.
And even later on, it like falls into that. He's like constantly lusting after his sister. That's the only like.
As in, like all of the sins were shown.
All of them are.
Yeah.
The father was excommunicated for being prideful. He's always out chopping the logs. He believes that he is the top dog when he can't actually do that many things right.
As in, like, the 7 deadly sins?
Yes.
Okay.
As in, like, the Puritan idea of sins as well. Like, the reason why the child is taken and why the witch can actually take it and use it is because Puritan belief dictates that all babies are sinful when they are born until they are actually cleansed.
Like they're baptized.
Yes. And during this one, the family is excommunicated before that baby is able to be cleansed. Right. So, easy target for the witch in this one, in which case is used to make her fly.
I'm glad that you brought up the 7 deadly sins because the mother represents wrath. How she has hatred.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I was actually going to ask like what Theo thought because I know the boy's lust, the father's pride.
I got the rest of them here.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah,
go for it.
Go for it. Realm off.
Wrath is the mother. She hates her daughter, as well as she is very like spiteful to anyone who kind of just comes across her path. Where's my cup?
She assumes the daughter stole it.
And she assumes that the daughter stole it. Lust, obviously, for the fucking little boy trying to pervert on his sister, and then eventually falls into the lust with the witch.
Yeah, that was weird.
With the interesting bit there, another one that reflects back on the Garden of Eden point that I made earlier is that he coughs up an apple, like a rotten apple, afterwards, representing that sort of idea.
After having told his mom a lie. About going into the woods because he thought he saw an apple tree.
It's also the expression of nudity as well as a big thing because Puritans also believed that nudity was sinful as well. So covering yourself entirely. So that's why the witches are always naked.
Yep.
When the boy returns, he's completely naked. Like at the ending of the movie when she like takes off her naked when she takes off her dress to go join the every single time. It's like this repetitive. Anyway, continue on, Murray. You have more sins to read.
So Sloth and Glutton are the twins. They don't help. They don't help with anything. All they do is just eat and play and just do nothing.
That's great.
That's so good.
It makes so much sense for that one.
It's so obvious, and I didn't even see it. That's so funny because they're just these shitty little It's so good.
And then the older daughter Thomasin is envy and greed as she like basically becomes envious of the people inside the society. She just wants to fit in, and she doesn't want to live on a shitty farm where corn is rotting and fucking goats are bleeding.
I don't know why I had a huge amount of empathy for Thomasin, as in like I felt like nothing that happened to her was deserved. Like she really just had a shit time like trying to just be okay with her family. But then like nobody wanted to listen to her, so she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to witchcraft. And like the devil pretty much was like, hey, you want some cool shit?
Interesting.
You want to live deliciously, I think is what he says.
Yeah,
so
such a great line.
Yeah. Well, it's great because it's delivered in the like the goat's voice and mouth. So you're like, this goat is talking to her. And it just felt weird, but like kind of a surreal moment.
Wouldst thou like a pretty dress?
I was so scared. I was like, oh God, are they going to make him sound like a goat? And I was like, oh, they didn't. Thank God.
No.
I also like that at the end, they actually have a person that manifests from the goat.
Yeah.
As like an actual representation of Satan, and he's kind of pirate looking.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't see him very long though; like it's very quick.
So there's another interpretation of all of these events going on with this family as well, which is we have all this rotting fruit, right?
Right.
So rotting fruit could also be a form of rot called ergotism, which is a form of like it rots through fruit. It can rot away its skin and whatnot, and it spreads like that. So it can also create a mycotoxin. So essentially, like it has psychedelic capabilities on people as well. So the ability for it to potentially influence this family, make them all go completely nuts, is a possibility with their food. And it's also what some historians think it might be what led to the Salem witch trials as well, what led people to be so fervent about that.
As in, like, the people were all getting infected with something?
Yep, as in ergotism infected their food, they ate it, it infected them, and then affected their minds.
Oh, what? I've never heard of that for the Salem witch trial.
Yep, look it up. It's interesting stuff. Yeah.
This movie is set 2 years before the Salem witch trials.
Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting to see the older witch who was, like, obviously, like, hunched over, bathing herself in, like, the baby's blood. For I don't know,
bits
just
and
so
gristle.
Yeah,
like it's mash. She mashes the baby in like a churner.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty intense.
That baby was cute too, dude.
It was, and it was.
What a great piece of horror too at the beginning when she's saying peekaboo and then he suddenly disappears.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I know he's gonna be gone right now. I didn't watch the trailer, but I was like, this is
yeah, it was in the trailer, which is kind of wild. But that was just like, it's so inexplicable. Like, you're looking and then he's gone suddenly the next second. Like, how do you even explain that to someone? And then this adds on to the mom being upset with her and blaming her for the kid being gone. She even is just like, oh, what happened to my silver cup? Did a wolf like steal that away too? And like
mothers being mad at their children for things and missing dead children. Interesting. There's a similarity in plot I'm seeing with these two movies.
Right, I know. It's kind of, oh man.
Both families getting completely cursed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and these are like, this is actual like demons, curses, and things like that. Like Hereditary goes full blown into like a demon possession. Yeah.
The witch herself, she manifests in many forms. She takes form of the rabbit and the crow.
Yeah, the rabbit was creepy.
The rabbit's creepy, but here's another thing. There's multiple women dancing at that fire at the end of the movie. Yes. So who's to say that there aren't multiple witches and not just a single
That's true.
witch?
I mean, Caleb came across the one witch hut, and she was in there, so they could be hanging out in there.
Yeah, and it never implied that was the same witch ever, so there could be multiple. Yeah. I think so anyway. That's a good idea. They've all been watching them.
That was such a great ending. To like have them all dancing on the fire and then like lift up.
Yeah. I mean, how great is it that right before she's like baptized in her own mother's blood and like completes like her whole transformation. It goes full circle at that point.
Yeah, it's true.
This film.
I think one of my favorite scenes is when Caleb comes through and has his one shot take about his entire like poem, just love for Jesus Christ. Like, oh, kisseth me upon the mouth. I love thy Jesus. I will come into your kingdom and lay upon your lap.
Was that like scripted or was he just like off the cuff?
That's scripted, but it's
but
one
he got
take.
it. He got it in one take.
That's
why
impressive. I think he's like my favorite character in this because like
and then
he
just dies.
Because the thing is like with the Puritans in any household, you're expecting your son to be the man of the house when you're gone.
Yeah.
So him trying to take like the reins and like grab the gun and go look out the traps, it makes like perfect plot sense and perfect like just natural genes inside him that he wants to save his sister, as well as like I don't know, just try to be an adult about things because he's like, oh, I saw my dad do this, I could do this.
Right.
But yeah, that was all one shot, and it was just I think it was incredible how he like contorts his body to like fit it, and then he finally just revels in ecstasy and it dies.
So I'm assuming he dies and like in their version goes to heaven. Because he was like able to come to that moment, or otherwise he was going to be possessed.
It's not really explained.
They also say that the fucking devil preaches scripture as well, and that he can preach scripture just as normal as any other person on the earth can.
Well, shit, they're just not having a good time.
Man, the Puritans are just an interesting timepiece for some, because this is almost a movie that would really make Puritans fucked up and like fuck up a Puritan if they still existed, you know? Because these are people that like believe that God is in literally everything around them and that it's like enveloping and that he is like watching all the things that they do. So I really like how well this movie captures that feeling. It's like another game. It's like a game that I played, not another game, but a game that I've played, which was, what was that? Kingdom Come Deliverance, I think, which is set in like the Middle Ages, but they view like every character you talk to views God that way as well.
Oh, okay.
As if they're all enveloping. And so it's very interesting to be in like a setting like that where everyone's just like, oh yeah, dude, you don't want to piss him off, he's like right over there. He's just like, it's very strange.
The God forgives, but he is all encompassing and wrathful if you do not please them. So basically, like, I really like the dialect between the father and the son.
Yeah,
it's like, oh well, our baby died, my brother died. He wasn't baptized. Is he in hell then? And then it's just like the father trying to come to terms to like comfort his son, but at the same time, where's his belief?
Yeah.
And then when they come together at the table and they're like reading the scripture to have dinner, it's just like, also when they're trying to pray for Caleb and the fucking twins forget and they blame it on Thomasin for making them forget the scriptures.
Dude, so like that was one of the parts where I knew that it was either them pretending and just adding on to what their parents believed already, or they had already like made weird deals with the devil and he was then just like making them do shit because they're children and they didn't know any better. So it was just hard to tell at some point because they're always hanging out with him. They're always singing songs about him. Like, I couldn't tell if he had already just like taken control of them and was just taunting the rest of them.
And then it comes back when Thomasin talks to her dad and it's just like, hey, they've been making deals with Black Phillip, the all-encompassing goat that represents Satan. These are your children. And so then he does the funny thing where he just picks them up by the shirt. And they're just like, oh! They scream in his face. But then he's just like, all my children are fucked up. I'm just putting you all in the barn with the goat, and I'm just calling it a night.
Yo, I don't know. Like, I would have lost it as a parent. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like, why are you just screaming like this?
No joke.
And then the poor dude gets fucking just destroyed by the goat.
Here's an interesting bit about his death by the goat is that he spends most of this movie chopping wood.
Yeah.
Constantly building this huge pile, like the biggest pile of wood. The immaculate representation of all of his uselessness to his entire family. And he is stabbed by a goat and buried in the wood.
Yeah.
That is his pride.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. That's fully intended, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What they were doing.
No, it's genius. It's so good.
After watching this film, I could see how he made The Lighthouse, though. Because I didn't watch this movie when it came out. I watched it just now.
Man, that's true. I feel like this was a great intro to his filmmaking. It's like, what a debut film to make something like this. Like, it's really good, technically speaking. Like the what is it? The cinematography, the sound. Like, the script, I think, was well done, too, for being in Old English and having certain moments kind of come through, especially with, like, the Puritan beliefs. The only thing that I didn't really like so much was just the use of natural lighting. But I get why. It makes sense to use the dark gloominess of that area. It's just ironic that it wasn't actually in North America. They filmed, like, somewhere in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, like,
trying to get that look might be hard to find spots exactly like that nowadays where you can
well,
actually do all
apparently
that filming, but
they didn't film in North America because of like taxation stuff and like the money things.
Oh wow.
So they didn't want to pay to like go to an area for that, so it's cheaper to film in Canada.
And the thing is, Robert Eggers, he hates horror movies. He does not like them. He actually is like, I like Psycho and I like The Shining and like The Wizard of Oz. Because the thing is, like, to him, like, when he was 4 years old, like, the Wicked Witch of the West was the scariest shit ever. And he's like, I still think that that's a pretty scary character in film history.
Interesting. I don't know what to make of that, considering he made such a good horror film with both of these.
It's good because I think that he tries to get into a different type of horror than just like, oh, the bad guy's gonna stab you. Well, don't get naked and fuck because he'll stab you. Don't do that.
All the 80s films.
It's more of like, what is human grief like? What is existence like? What is like living like?
Also, both of these are they're both really slow burning horror films. You have to watch it all the way until the end to get a full picture of what's going on. Like, within the last like 5 minutes of the film really like solidifies a lot of things for you. The
music in these movies is pretty haunting too. It's just like the trees are screaming basically the entire time.
They do this music in The Witch where it builds and builds and builds until it's almost like a scream, like what you had said, and then it cuts. It cuts to like a loud noise or something else, or just like staring. They do a lot of cuts to him chopping wood that are really fucking loud, like after a quiet scene. and that shit startled me a few times just watching that. And then Hereditary just made me feel uncomfortable. Like I was.
Do we want to segue to Hereditary
unsettled.
now and like start talking about it?
guess,
Are we still on The Witch?
I guess all I'll say is Robert Eggers wasn't trying to make the run of the mill. He hates the slasher movies.
That's fair.
And I think that's why it didn't really do so well in the like public's eye. It's very period piece. Like you said, Mitch, the dialogue is very old and archaic, but it's not supposed to be like that. It's a New England folktale.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be played out like that. And if you're going into this movie expecting a good horror movie as a horror movie, you're not going to get a lot out of it. I like the fantasy elements of it a lot.
I think he just made it too early.
Yeah.
If he made it in 2015, people weren't quite on that vibe of horror film yet.
And they will be within like 2 years.
Yeah. So it's like it's a good time to go and revisit a movie like this because you'll enjoy it.
I will say though, I think now it has a bit of a cult following.
Yeah.
Now it has the respect that it deserved back then over 5 years, but back then no.
He did get a lot of praise from critics though. People really liked it, and they saw that it was a good piece of filmmaking. So he at least had that. But I think it's well paced. I'm glad that it's only an hour and a half. I think if it was any longer, it would have dragged out. But it was like, it's such a good encapsulated story of the family falling apart. And I hadn't noticed all of the sins that you guys had mentioned. I was just focused too much on like the technique of him making the film. And I think the shots are really good.
There's so much to talk about this film historically. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like on a historical criticism basis, it's very, very interesting to watch and whatnot, having like the knowledge of, you know, the past when it comes to all of this.
There's a lot of stories about just terrible, awful things happening to the settlers in North America because they didn't know the land. They didn't know how to grow anything there. They could barely build houses sometimes. And they didn't want to get the help from the Native Americans there. Or if they did, they would abuse the shit out of it and then they wouldn't help them anymore. So there's just so many stories of them having an awful time. There's like Roanoke where they like everyone just disappeared.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like at the end of the movie, if you go through the credits, it says that it was like based off of old diaries, old stories that have been passed down generation to generation. And
they get worse as they go on, I'm sure, because people retell it and add some extra things to it because they're all very superstitious.
The base story of it was really just we didn't like the town and we left.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Someone was like, "Yo, I don't know where." And it was the one guy that came back and everyone was gone because he got lost in the woods or something. And he's like, "Where'd everyone go?" Man, Satan came up, and grabbed them all.
Right.
Also, Ralph Ineson's voice is fucking great.
Yeah, the dad.
Yeah.
He's just, I don't know how you even have a deep voice like that. It's deep, it's raspy, like he has such a good voice acting
And
voice.
he just looks like a fucking Game of Thrones character.
Because he was.
Well, that's because he is. Because he is. But here's
Wait,
the thing,
who was he in Game of Thrones?
I never watched Game of Thrones.
Here's a crazy suggestion about the look of this character as the father. To display his pride even more, he looks very Jesus-like.
Very
At least the
true.
Puritan idea of Jesus, anyway.
He's also pretty ripped.
Yeah. Jesus did have abs.
He had like a 6-pack.
Yeah.
But I would say now is a good time to say Hereditary. What did you guys think right off the bat from Hereditary?
Man,
what did you expect?
So this child, a sweet,
we've talked
sweet
about
child.
this though.
We have, yes, we have. I'm sure. I think I'm doing a callback right now to that episode because that's the only part I remember making a joke about is that the child in Hereditary is sort of ugly.
You be nice to Millie Shapiro. It's her first acting role, and she plays Charlie well.
She plays Charlie well.
Moral of the story: don't eat chocolate cake.
Don't eat. Whoa! It was the nuts.
Yeah, it was an allergic reaction.
To nuts.
Poor girl couldn't breathe, so yeah.
Oh, Hereditary.
So Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster, the man who made Midsommar. It was released in 2018. And
another A24 film.
Another A24 film. $10 million budget, made $80,000 worldwide.
80 million.
Sorry, 80 million. On the cast, we have Alex Wolff as Peter. You may remember him from the Naked Brothers band on Nickelodeon.
Holy shit, what the fuck?
Alex Wolff from the Naked Brothers
That is
band.
the dude. Oh my god.
He's also in the new Jumanji. He's actually a pretty decent actor. I'm glad he's taking these routes.
Right.
Gabriel Bryan as Steve, who I didn't know his name was Steve until halfway through the movie.
Yep.
Toni Collette as Annie, fucking psycho. Millie Shapiro as Charlie. And a bunch of other people we don't really give a fuck about.
Sick.
I mean, to be honest, the main person in this film is either the mom or the son. Like, everybody else is kind of secondary.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so bad for Peter through all of this.
Right. He gets such
There's
terrible
so
shit
much
happening
to discuss about this. It's nuts.
I do like the mom as an actor. She's phenomenal all the way through and just can absolutely show her losing her fucking mind.
Oh, yeah.
Once it gets closer to the edge or the end of the movie, and she displays all of it so well. She has great face acting where you can see all of this emotion coming through her face, and then she just shows all the panic and anxiety that's building up in her.
I'd say we had a lot of really skilled actors in this movie. They did not get like some chump shit. Like, you know, they brought in some real talent for this one, I think. You know, nothing like, I mean, maybe nothing that's gonna like start winning awards or whatever the fuck, if that's like what you care about. But they do their roles well enough to portray this suffering family. The movie opens up with a funeral, like a eulogy being spoken, I believe, by Annie, the mother.
Yeah, and she's very like promiscuous because there's a lot of faces that she does not recognize. A lot of people there that are just like she's never seen her entire life. Which foreshadows what's to come.
Right, which is really fucking intense once you get to the end.
And then basically we're just, after the funeral, we're just going into the daily lives of these people. Peter likes to smoke weed and just chill out.
Poor dude. He was just trying to chill.
Yeah,
the whole movie, it's just Peter wants to chill and how Peter can't chill.
It's the same thing with Color Out of Space. Where that brother character just wanted to smoke weed, gets disintegrated by the well. Okay.
Anyway, so, you know what's interesting about this one is the Annie makes the dioramas.
Yeah,
she makes these dioramas for people, like little miniatures and whatnot. But what's interesting is that they'll do interesting things with shots where they'll do a close up on one of those and then have it fade into the actual scene, almost creating this kind of idea that like the family is always being watched.
Ooh.
Like there's always this unsettling feeling that the family's being watched every time. Like even at like the first, like you'll see the cult members, which we're spoiling everything anyway. But the cult members are in like every other scene of this movie.
Yeah,
like all over the place. You can find them or things related to them.
There's a good read on the dollhouse, simply because when you play with dolls, they are in your control. The family here is just on the ride that they have no control over because of the premonitions made by their grandmother. So she set the wheels in motion, and now basically they're living with their son trying to be possessed by a
Well, as far as I understood, the grandmother basically had promised this demon members of her own family to like possess. And specifically male bodies, because that's what the demon wanted.
And then in the intro of the film, it starts with a text that she tried it on her son and her father, but like the father killed himself.
Right.
And then the son was saying, "Oh, she's trying to put people in me."
Yeah, you get a really good piece of foreshadowing for it. And doesn't he just like hang himself?
He becomes schizophrenic, and then he does eventually kill himself. But it's like it's preluding to the fact because Charlie and the grandmother were close. And so she probably knew about some of these cult members and probably had... This is really crazy. I'm going to go a little bit in depth here. So there's a special herb that is used to basically bring up Payman. And it is shown throughout the film, but not basically shown in your face. There are pictures of Charlie being breastfed and fed this herb because she wanted to use Charlie as the vessel, but found out that the actual demon wants a man.
Right.
So she had to somehow figure out a way to put Charlie's soul inside of Peter. And so you see it when the mom character goes to... Is her name Jean? Joanne. She gets tea, and then the herb is inside of her tea. And she's like looking at it. And like I thought that was a throwaway scene. I thought that was nothing. But it turns out that for Payman to be summoned, it requires a couple things. It requires the herb, as well as it requires a sacrifice of 3 heads to summon the actual demon.
Damn.
So that would be Lee, the grandma, who is decapitated from her gravesite and thrown into the attic.
Then it's Charlie, and then it's Charlie. The mom.
And the thing is, with the pillar that Charlie gets her head destroyed on, it has the sigil of Payman.
Yeah.
Because the cult is basically curating this dollhouse to make this shit go down so that they can have Payman. Everything that Payman does in the... What is it? In the 1863 edition of the book that they read.
Which one? The spiritualism one?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember. Payman is mentioned in quite a few really old archaic texts.
He's mostly
that
known
talk about him
from the Lesser Key of Solomon. But his powers include it is the knowledge of past and future events, clearing up doubts, making spirits appear, creating visions, acquiring and dismissing servants, reanimating the dead for up to several years, flight, remain underwater indefinitely, and the ability to make all kinds of things and all sorts of people and armor appear.
He also is known as the keeper of secrets
as
well, who he will tell you secrets as long as you relinquish a secret of your own.
There's
some very strange, it's all occultic stuff with this one. Which is very interesting. Another interesting bit is they do some parallels with some Greek tragedies. One of which is the tragedy of Hercules as well, where he's killed by his own wife after ignoring warning signs and things like that as well. Similar to how the characters interpret a lot of the signs, they are very ignorant to what's going on around them. Very ignorant that there are people watching them all the time, especially at the funeral.
There was that weird guy staring at Charlie.
Yep. There's also the naked guy in the attic that appears randomly. That was the stuff of nightmares.
There's one exterior shot. I didn't notice it's the first time. I had to go back, but there's one exterior shot where it's an outside shot of the house, and there's naked people surrounding the entire house.
Oh shit! I missed that one.
Yes.
I missed that shot.
Yep.
Holy crap, that's crazy.
Also, I'm glad that you bring up the Hercules thing because that's what the lesson was in Peter's class.
Yeah, exactly.
They go over
it. There was 2 of them. There was that one, and then there was the story about, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Iphigenia or Iphigenia, the daughter of King Agamemnon and Clemenstria. But basically, she was a princess, and she offends the god Artemis, and they demand that she gets killed as payment for the offense. And it's just it's funny because that always happens in high school classes where they tell you these stories that are just really deep. They have a lot of meaning to them, but these kids don't give a fuck about what you're telling them in a high school class. And then it's just it's meant to be just the background, but it's put here purposefully as a connection for people to make when you're watching it.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's well done too. And also there's a little tidbit is that at the end of the movie the teacher is in there. Yeah, the teacher of his class is there, and that's the most fucked up part.
Thank you for bringing that up, because remember when Peter has that anxiety attack from smoking weed with his friends? The dude is in the end scene as well. One of his friends that he's smoking weed with is in the actual I didn't notice that. House. Yeah, he has a bun. He put the herb that is required to summon Payman inside his weed.
Oh God!
That's why he's,
How did I miss this shit?
This family is doomed. from the very beginning.
So many
of the
people
movie.
that are just fucking with them.
They also say that punishment is wisdom was another thing, because they're alluding to all those Greek stories,
right?
So it's just there's so much little details in Hereditary that it's even the big main parts, they're just a lot of foreshadowing and tension. And that's what you're saying. You were very anxious when you watched this movie, right?
Yeah, watching it, I felt super uncomfortable. I felt like when you're watching it, you end up getting the sense that the family is helpless, that you know things that are going on, but you can't tell them anything. So it creates that dramatic irony with the audience, where they often do this with Greek tragedies and with Shakespeare stories, where you would know something, but the character didn't. So you have to watch them walk just full blown into a trap, basically.
I feel like a big thing that's analyzed in this movie is the futility of life sort of idea. Where is our actual place in this world? What place do you actually what purpose do you actually serve? Because all of these people have their own lives, but none of them actually matter like tangibly in any way, because they are all made to serve bringing Paimon into the world. So it kind of raises questions like that as well too.
And I was thinking, like, it's just so crazy how all these gears are in motion. Even Joanne, she fabricates the whole thing about her son and grandson. Because you see her at, I don't know what it was, Michael's or whatever. She's buying stuff for miniatures, of course. But you see Joanne buy chalkboards in her car. There are chalkboards in the back of her car. And then she goes to do the sermon thing. Is like, hey, we did a seance. We could talk to your dead children and your dead grandmother.
Oh, man. I just feel like she definitely should have known that a seance is a bad idea. Anyone who ever knows anything about these things, it's not always a good idea.
But she doesn't. That's the deal. Like she's vastly ignorant to everything.
The only reason I say that she probably should know is because after her scare in her workshop, she goes and looks up like an article and things about it. Like she reads up on it and looks up like a really scientific article on it, which made me think that she would be really skeptical and probably wouldn't do it. But I guess she was meant to be desperate in that moment, wanted to like have some communication.
The thing is, like, the father is also a psychologist. It is seen in the email that he is a psychologist, and he thinks that this entire thing is just the work of his of the mother. Like at the end, like I was like, oh, this is like minor gaslighting. Like, you're the one who put your mother's fucking body up there. You're the one who's like setting all this stuff. You're the one who's
that's
fucking
right.
shit up.
He didn't tell her about the grandmother's grave getting like dug up.
Yeah, because he thought he would just feel horrible about it. But then there's also a bunch of things where she sleepwalks.
God, that's terrifying.
She sleepwalks, and there's that story where she had all that, what was it, petrol or gasoline or whatever?
It was a paint thinner.
And poured it all over Charlie and Peter and had the matchbox. And then just at the last moment when she lit the match, that's when she woke up and realized what she was doing.
Yeah, so this is an element of the story that was weird because you then get suddenly a very unreliable narrator with the mom. Because at one point, she's like trying to yank the head off of Peter through like the bars on his bed because she's sleepwalking. And so you have to then consider all the things that have happened previously. Was it the mom sleepwalking, or was it actually some other shit happening? Or was the sleepwalking her getting possessed?
Or does she have like PPID or whatever that's called? I think it's like whatever. What was that mental? Because it explores that idea as well, like in something personality disorder. What's that called?
Oh, it's a BID or something like that.
BID, is it BID?
I'm not sure.
They referenced it once in the movie. I had to look it up. And I totally
okay.
Forgot. But there are a lot of things like the mother sleepwalks while she's possessed. There are scenes where she is in the corner of Peter's room, just on the roof.
Yeah.
Or like in the like bottom left-hand corner in a corner, just staring at him. There's a lot of fucking scenes where you just see the cult members just chilling in the house. And like I couldn't recognize who the people were at some points. I was like, is that the grandma? Is that the mom? Is that the dad? Who is that?
Yeah, you have to pay close attention because there's nothing to give them away unless you look into certain parts of like the darkness.
This movie is meant to be watched a second time.
Yeah, totally.
Because then when you know what the whole point of the ritual is, it's more interesting to watch it all unfold again with the knowledge of how it concludes, basically.
This also plays with the idea of certain fears that people have about the darkness and seeing things like when you're alone in your own house. Sometimes random objects might scare you, like a jacket on a chair.
You might think it's a person.
Yeah, I think it's a person. And there's even a scene where he looks over and it looks like a woman bent over. And then he looks again and it's just the coat and like the hood is over the chair.
It's happened to me so many fucking times.
All the time. That kind of stuff happens to you so regularly in your own house. And then like when she gets scared in her workshop where she thinks she sees something and it's just like, but then when Charlie actually shows up and talks or doesn't really say anything but like moves forward, does the noise, and he keeps hearing it. The scene where he loses it at his desk is great, where he's like looking at the reflection of himself that's just smiling back at him.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite scene that he's in is right after Charlie gets decapitated. That's my favorite scene of Peter because it's just that moment of silence and dread. He can't look at the backseat of his car.
Yeah.
He says, "Are you okay?" And you can tell in his voice that he doesn't, he knows that he knows.
He drives all the way home.
Yeah, he just drives home.
I would have gotten rid of that fucking car.
This is a crazy part of the movie as well because you see two different types of reactions to death in this movie. You see the type of death that you're prepared for, the grandma, where you go basically, grandma's going to die. We're prepared for this. This is always right. And then you have the one that you're not prepared for, which is finding your headless daughter in the back of your son's car.
Just talking about getting fucking traumatized.
Yeah. Oh, and then that glorious scene of the severed head on the side of the road covered in fucking ants.
Oh, God. They ended up using the head on that wooden sculpture at the end, too.
Yep.
Which is so fucked up.
Yep.
The thing is, also, when he's getting possessed in the school and basically fucks himself up, his left
hand just pops up
and points. It is the staff of Payman
that
it is referencing, and you see it at the end with the entire actual idol they made with Charlie's head on top. Yeah, it's just there's so many minor details, but the thing is, I thought that it was pretty weird that the mom wanted Charlie to even go to the party.
I guess she was trying to prevent Peter from drinking.
That's a terrible thing.
Which he didn't do. He actually ended up just smoking weed. But, that was, he even tells her at their dinner where he's just like, why was she even there in the first place? You're the one who made me take her. And, is putting the blame off of himself.
That's such an intense moment because you're like, bro, you're just lighting a fire right now. There's no,
well, she loses it. She's just fucking you don't talk to me that way because I'm your mom. Don't ever raise your voice at me.
Yeah, and stop sitting there with a face on your face.
That was so funny.
Fucking face on your face.
That's the ultimate frustration of just you can't think of anything else, so you just
if that's written, it's genius. It's
totally.
If that's written, it's so genius.
I think it was. I think that moment might have been.
We also have to talk about the light in this movie that controls everything and sets everything in motion.
Yo, so what was that exactly? It looks like a ring of light that focuses.
It's basically the amalgamation of Payman sending you to your desired path that he wants you to go to.
Oh, wow.
Where you're going to go so he could be summoned.
Oh, you're talking about that camera, that little effect that where it blinks on the walls and everything, and then centers on a point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's totally you being led. That's definitely you being
led.
So
the thing is, there's also a part where she is doing her miniatures, and the light blinks, and she's gonna go reach for it. The bottle that falls over on her table falls on its own. It's not touched by her. And then that's when she grabs the card that has the number for Joanne.
Yeah, exactly. It's leading her to all of these things.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole family's fucked.
And it's not in their control. They are the dolls in the dollhouse.
Yeah.
Because the grandma has set plans for them because she couldn't get it done herself, so she has to use her second generation to get it done. And she was the queen. She's Queen Lay.
Yeah.
So, they probably had so many sex orgy parties and nasty shit going down.
Yo, wait.
Probably, dude. They're always naked.
They're always naked, and there's a lot of photos with them hanging out together in those photo albums.
The nudity being a rejection of the Trinity, similar to the witch, following an old Puritan idea once again. We're coming back to this idea of sin again.
Yeah.
As well.
Totally.
And because they even say in the beginning, we reject the Trinity, et cetera, and then doing so, a big fuck you to the church is being completely naked in all your rituals and everything is a giant big fuck you. Yeah, pretty cool.
So at the end is Peter then gonna live on with the demon inside him?
Peter's gone. He's dead.
Yeah, it's now Paimon, and then he will give secrets.
If you notice, when he jumps out the window, his soul leaves his body.
No, I did not notice anything.
Yep.
Well, you
see a silhouette of his soul leave his body,
Shit.
And then you see that blue light of Payman go inside of him.
Oh, damn! So he legit killed himself and then left his body open.
Yep.
That's why he just willingly goes up and walks in.
And that's why they call her Charlie. Charlie, we put you in a new body. It's the male form that Payman requires.
Oh wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
There's a lot more details.
It's all a big effort to get a evil demon out of a little child into a boy. That's the whole thing. That's it.
I will say the marketing for this was interesting because they didn't give away any plot.
Nothing.
It was a lot of fast-paced editing, and it makes you believe that the daughter Charlie is to blame for all of this, but she wasn't.
Or that she's like the main antagonist, which she technically is, but isn't. You know what I mean? Like maybe she may not be aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, she's being controlled and manipulated by the grandma ever since birth. When the grandma would fucking feed her the herb to summon demon.
The mom tells this story about where she would take her away from her because she had to be the one to feed her.
To breastfeed her.
Yeah, and she thought it was a joke or like just her being really stubborn, but like it was for a reason.
And then I think it's so intense because the thing is, the entire movie we're like, what is grandma's cult? What is going on?
Right.
And then she gets into the box of stuff, and that's when you see like the pillows that everyone else had, like Joanne had, that she had. And then there's one for Charles.
Yeah.
Who was supposed to be Charlie. Because Charlie was supposed to be a boy.
Right.
And she was so, like, disturbed by the fact that she couldn't have Payman come through again.
That shit.
Jeez.
I missed the Charles and then the Charlie.
Yeah. That's why they named her Charlie.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah. After her dead father.
Yeah. A lot of small details.
Also, for the marketing, they accidentally aired this trailer at a screening for Peter Rabbit. And so many kids in Australia were crying, and the parents were just fucking hysterical.
That's kind of funny.
That's
I'm not going to lie.
Funny but terrifying.
It's just like,
evil, ugly girl on the screen is going to get me, Ma. Wait till you see the scene with her 30 minutes in. Yo.
Oh, where she cuts the pigeon's head off.
Yo, so God. What the fuck?
Why?
She's just like snips the head off and then just takes it.
Paymon's like an unconscious Paymon desire. I need heads.
I think one of the biggest oh shit moments was when Annie goes back to Joanne's house and Joanne's not there, but all of her ritual stuff is there and it's focused on Peter. She has the pigeon doll there set up, made in Paymon, and then she has her sigil just opened up and lit.
Yep.
This is in Charlie's room, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or no, in Joanne's
house, yep.
This is also the moment of a really good shot for cinematography where she's walking down the hallway and it's pointed at her and she walks by and the camera goes above her and then she passes it and it goes down behind her.
She's over her head.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's so good and it's so out of place because it's a completely different shot than what you had seen earlier in the film. So it was a visual marker of something really terrible happening.
I think Steve got it the worst because he's just trying to help his family, trying to keep Peter safe.
Burned alive.
And a stunning shot, 100%, of him just crisping up into some fucking some fried chicken.
I was confused though that why did it burn him instead of her?
Manipulation. We need to keep Annie alive because she is the conduit.
Do you remember when she tried burning it originally though and it started lighting up her sleeve?
Yes.
So was it just fucking with her and then he was like, don't burn it, like you're gonna burn. So she thought she was gonna burn herself but then ended up burning her husband.
It could be just whoever burns this book gets it back.
But she tossed it in.
Oh shit, you're right. Damn.
That's why I was surprised to see the husband just light up.
Also in the beginning of the movie when they come back from the funeral, I don't know if you guys heard, but there's people shuffling in the attic upstairs.
No, I did not. There's so many small details I missed in this.
Yep.
There's people shuffling in the attic upstairs? That's so fucking funny.
This is like when we watched The Invisible Man and we're like, did you notice like the small things?
That.
Yeah, there's just
like,
a whole bunch.
The fuck?
Yeah.
Just going back though, it's just like me and my friend were just like, white people be crazy because you never see people of color doing this kind of shit.
Yeah, any sort of ritual movie, cult movie, like you're not usually gonna find people of color.
At the same time, though, we were joking about that. We weren't being serious, but at the same time, we were just like humans. Though humans are always looking for the ancient secrets that they should not know, and
accurate.
That their travel to get them and their sacrifices they make to get them are never worth the actual secrets that they gain themselves.
Nope.
And that they will always be basically lambs for the slaughter. Just to awaken some fucking 60,000-year-old demon.
Yikes.
Why would you get the Whore of Babylon out of the Giza pyramids, Ali Craster? Why would you do that?
So, did you guys have any favorite scenes from either one of the films?
I'll say it again. Just in The Witch, just the kid doing his Shakespearean ode to God.
Yeah, that was really well done.
in one take. I think that's impressive. Also, I love the fairy tale-esque fucking witch cottage. That entire sequence where he's walking up and he's just like, oh shit, it's a babe.
Yeah, right. Like she's like transformed, very attractive woman in like a red cloak.
Those are my two favorite scenes.
What about you, Mitch?
One moment. So the 1 second before I reveal my favorite scenes, I have one thing I want to say, John.
Yeah.
Well, it's more so that this question you brought up interested me enough to look up a potential answer that we have for it. So in that moment, the demon goes and possesses the body of Stephen once the book is snatched and whatnot, and it's not being burned. Switches bodies instantaneously, and then when she throws the book into there, it lights his ass on fire.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true because they had all pretty much been a part of the ritual,
Yep.
so he could jump around their bodies.
Yep, that's basically it.
That's a pretty good explanation.
Yep, that's the supernatural because it's not kerosene. There's not enough kerosene. Anyway, my favorite scenes in the movies. Let's see, what movies did we watch?
You're joking, right?
Of course I'm joking.
I wanted to see how long you could hold it.
So let's see. My favorite scene in The Witch. Fuck, man, there's so many good ones in that movie. It's really like the movie itself has like you can't just view it in parts, really. You know, but I think one of my favorite ones is probably like the ending scene where Black Phillip is revealed to actually be Satan at the end, and then him whispering to her in that whole like bit where she walks out into the forest naked and starts flying. Shit's creepy and awesome. And then you've got my favorite scene in Hereditary. Like it's a tie between the ending scene and then that scene right after Charlie gets hit. Like that scene where he's just sitting in the car because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's exactly how anyone would feel in that situation, and it's like just portrayed so eloquently. He just does such a good job of it. Yeah.
I will say for Hereditary, my favorite scene is just like when you don't know something's there. Like that shot of the entire cult outside of their fucking house. There's like 17 of them.
Yeah, they're just
all
chilling in the
out.
bushes and shit.
Yeah. That as well as the scene where he's crowned.
Yeah.
Where they actually explain their plan and you see this entire shrine and like the whole village of people. Also, the chalk scene was pretty cool because they actually had to put a magnet in between a piece of chalk.
I figured that they used something real because it didn't look CGI.
Nope. They literally had to open chalk, somehow put a magnet in it, and close it back up.
You could probably drill like a hole into it and then put a magnet strong enough in it.
Pretty interesting stuff, though.
That works really well, actually.
What were your favorite scenes?
For The Witch, I think it was just because I was laughing too much. But dude, when the dad gets fucked up by the goat, I thought it was hilarious. I was just like, yo, this dude, like this goat is fucking up his life right now. Like full blown, just knocking him out. And just the way, so it's really dramatic. Like it looked like a painting where you could pause it. And like, if you see the goat like buck upwards and it's just got its horns in the air and he's just like backing away from it because he doesn't know what's about to happen. And it just fucking kills him. That part when he talks to Thomasin and like it just completely breaks like the idea of what the movie was about, and it's just like full blown witchcraft and like evil things happening, and he just like presents her like how every other scene you would think like the devil is just trying to give you something, where he's like, do you want this, like do you want to live like this? He's like, well, you should like come and follow me, and then takes her into the woods and she joins the rest of the witches, which gives you the idea that he's just been collecting women for like witches to like serve him, and it's like they're all young women who are probably in the same situation that's going on. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with that one. For Hereditary, the scene you mentioned about right after Charlie gets killed is just like it's a really well done piece of acting for him, because he is terrified to check out the incident, drives all the way home, and then lays in bed and waits all the way until the morning. He's awake the whole time. So, like, you see the time pass around him, but the camera doesn't move. And then you hear the mom close the door and walk out and wait, like, a minute or two. And then you hear the screams.
She said she's going to go get some oil. And then I'm just like, oh, no, here it comes.
Yep, you know it. Yeah. And then he realizes what's happened, and she just loses it. And then after that, he stays there But the only thing that was like I was poking holes in was that like no cops are involved.
That was something I wanted to bring up. Where the fuck is the law enforcement?
Yeah, so like in this moment, they would have at least come to the house to interview him. If the mom wasn't like pressing charges against him or something.
Mitch, where the fuck were the cops in this movie?
Where were the cops in this movie?
None.
Well, here's the thing.
There was just no cops.
I don't think that they're. Well, it was shot in Utah. Does it say Satan? Is it set in Utah?
Cops can't help you against demons, but I mean, they would at least attempt to talk to you about murder.
My only assumption is that they are ignoring the family because they have ties to some police officers.
You have that, or you have that narratively and filmmaking wise, it made more sense to just move on to the funeral, and who gives a shit about what happens with the cops?
Right.
That's not part of the story.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like they were like, I feel like they're trying to keep it focused. Like, you don't. What would the point be if there's a bunch of cops interviewing this kid? Like, they probably had it they had an eye gouging scene in this movie because it would be more realistic, but it didn't do well with the viewers, like with the initial viewing of it, so they took it out of the movie.
Oh yeah, there's a whole nother hour of this movie that got cut.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it does have the scene with the eye gouging.
Wait, who gets their eyes gouged out?
It should be Peter.
Yeah, because Charlie protrudes to it in her notebook.
Oh, she does a lot of times.
Yeah, he's supposed to. It's kind of a wasted effort, actually, to have all that build up in there and then not actually have eyes being gouged out. Yeah.
And then the other scene that really fucked me up was the mom cutting her own head off. Just sawing through it with whatever she has.
With that wire?
Yeah. And it's just like she's staring right at him as like part of his happening.
Like a block of cheese.
The end scene with the fucking treehouse.
Yeah.
It mirrors the ending of Midsummer so well.
Yeah, it really does.
Just how they look so similar. Two different rituals, one ending and the other beginning.
Interesting. That's true. Yeah. I need to go watch Midsummer again.
It's a good episode.
I need to go watch the extended version and see how I feel about it.
Ooh.
I might feel different after watching it a second time.
I think it's a second viewing sort of movie too.
Oh yeah. So what would you guys rate these movies then?
The Witch, I'd give it a solid 8. And then Hereditary, it's a new horror classic, probably a 9. It actually makes people scared. It makes people uncomfortable and anxious. And for a lot of people, I ask them, I'm like, do you like any modern horror films? And all they say is, yeah, I liked Hereditary. That's usually what I hear.
Yeah, it started like kind of a new age of horror, I think, in some ways. That and a few other films were all in the same time period.
I give The Witch props for historical accuracy.
Definitely. What do you think, Mitch?
9s across the board.
Okay.
I think 9. I think the amount of detail paid attention to in The Witch is really important, especially because it's a period piece, and I think that takes a lot of extra work just to to make it accurate. It's different than just like making a movie about a couple of cops in Brooklyn or something. You know, something that you can like easily just like read up on real quick. It's something you actually have to take time and actually know the source material well enough to do. So I feel like that deserves a 9. And then Hereditary just has a very intricate plot for a really simple premise. You know, really intricate like storytelling for a really simple premise. Great example of showing and not telling when it comes to it as well. Mm-hmm.
I agree. I would give them like 8.5 9s, like mostly because they're really well put together. I don't think anything about the films is wasted. There's no scenes where I was like, why is this here? There's no reason why we should do this. And they both showed a really good understanding of family dynamics, how people are going to interact with each other, and the problems you're going to encounter that are realistic. Like, these are things that might actually happen, and then adding the extra layer of the time period and what exactly has happened. So for the period piece, for them being Puritans, for them being worried about how they are seen in God's eyes is constantly a thing that like permeates their whole life, where they're just worried about it. They're praying constantly. Like, that's the only thing they can revert to when something bad happens is praying, because there's just no other thing they think will help them in that moment. And then it's countered by the witchcraft being brought into the story, which was just like a part of so many stories, but it's really well done here because it's not excessive. You don't have like a scene where the witch talks to somebody and you have this like evil plot that she's trying to get to.
these movies just do really well with subtlety.
Yeah,
subtlety in everything they do, and then leading your breadcrumbs right to like the main course.
You just gotta pay attention. You have to pay attention to them.
The long burn.
Yeah, they're really slow burn movies. They don't rely on a lot of jump scares, although there is some moments that might scare you because of the way they cut it. And it definitely had some moments where I was like, oh, fucking shit.
Honestly, I love these movies because they don't do jump scares. That's one thing these movies don't do that I appreciate they don't do. They allow tension and just uneasiness to be what frightens you the most.
The music complements it well. And I will say that these are great directorial debuts from some of the better actors from A24 now. The fact that they both, made these films and then later would make The Lighthouse and Midsommar, it's just, these are just as good as those two films.
Oh yeah.
But I still feel that their latter movies are better.
Yeah, they were able to polish up what they did in these first films to create something that was way, way, way better in some really interesting ways, because they're carving this new genre of horror where people have to really pay attention and look at all of the details in something like that to get a good payoff at the end of it. But it's up there with like really good horror films.
It's worth it to pay attention.
Yeah. And definitely, I don't know. This one was, I felt like you should probably watch it alone. Not gonna lie, I don't think you should watch it with people.
Both of these?
Yeah. Just because like you're gonna miss a bunch of stuff if like someone's there like freaking out.
I watched it with a friend I watched Hereditary with a friend that was like, he's somewhat spiritually inclined as with myself. So like we have read some text and all that. So we were just like, dude, this is nuts. Like we were like pointing out stuff to each other, but I had to go back and rewatch it because I was thinking I was seeing something and I was. You second guess yourself.
Oh, nice.
Stuff.
All right.
So it's definitely one of those movies that you watch and then you got to watch again.
Okay. Did you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Go watch the movies.
Yeah, that's my final thought. Go see them. Figure out your own opinions. Don't listen to critics or the general public for anything ever, really.
Yeah, for real. Most of those critics are really mean when they're writing reviews.
Especially people that just write reviews on like IMDb and shit. Most of them are fucking idiots. So,
oh my god!
Like, yeah, just make up your own opinion. Go watch and make up your own opinion.
Cool. Then before I let everybody go, I just want to remind everyone we're super easy to find on all the streaming services. We're basically anywhere that you can stream a podcast, and I am slowly putting up the episodes onto YouTube. So we'll be caught up in the next few days, and you'll be able to listen to them there if you don't want to go to any of the streaming sites. So all you need to do is go into Google, search up Bringing Down the Grindhouse. You can also find us on our social media sites, BDTGH_podcast, and you can find us at Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook. We also have our Patreon that is live currently, so if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff with us, outlines, Mitch.
Give us money. We do this for you.
And you, of course, are able to help us create the schedule for future episodes. You're able to vote on them, send us messages. We'll send you cool information about the podcast. I post up outlines on there if you're curious about how we usually will go about the episodes.
I'm offering a full set of my own nudes of myself, drenched in blood for you people. Full set. Buy it. Get it.
Oh man, thank you so much for coming out to talk about these two films. I hope everyone has a good night.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Mur.
And I'm Jonathan. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, John.